Hi, this is Jessica, and I've decided to do my video presentation about the gender differences and similarities and digging a little deeper into what we were presented with in each chapter because it was mentioned in just about every chapter we've read so far that gender has some effect one way or another on communication styles, listening styles, but they seem to sort of contradict each other in some ways. So I started out by thinking, okay, there's this men are from Mars, women are from Venus type of attitude towards communication and how they're so very different and it's so hard and so much work for men and women to come together and be able to communicate effectively. So we started out by looking in chapter 3 on perceiving others, which points out that men and women's brains are physiologically different. The cerebral cortex is structured differently, where men are more geared towards perceiving time and speed, where women are better at spatial relationships and identifying emotions. So there are two very obvious differences. But then, as far as actually communicating, that same chapter indicated that less than 1% of the communication differences are based on gender alone. So that tells us that it's really very similar between the men and the women, how they communicate. So then I dug a little deeper into the next chapter, which was on emotions, and explained how men tend to feel more anger and hostile kinds of emotions. Women feel guilt and shame and sadness and fear, which are more internal type of emotions. So while the actual emotions that they're feeling are different, the book also said that the intensity with which men feel happiness is the same as with women, and how intensely they feel happiness, the same with sadness or anger or shame or any other emotion. So that's kind of a toss-up as to whether that's a difference or a similarity. But I also found a common theme in these chapters is that a lot of the differences are either based on stereotypes that we have about men and women, or this gender socialization where from a really young age we're taught to act like a girl or act like a boy. Girls are supposed to be sensitive and caring, and boys are supposed to be successful and independent and aggressive. And we probably don't even realize that we're doing it as parents, but it does start from a young age, and maybe some people are more inclined to be that way genetically, but it's also a lot of what's taught. So that has a huge, huge impact on how children develop, and then how those children develop into adults, how they present themselves, how they communicate with each other. Another chapter that we looked at was on the active listening, which did point out that women are more likely to be people and content oriented, men are more likely to be action and time oriented, which I know that they base their studies on real data, but it seems like a big generalization because I know women who are more of the time and action oriented. I feel like I'm action oriented a lot of the time. And I know men that are content and people oriented, and they get really deep into conversations and they're able to observe people's nonverbal cues along with their verbal communication and can really read into people very well. So that's a tough one to sort of determine whether it's whether I'm on board with that, I guess. But I do feel like the nonverbal chapter that we just covered was really, really good at explaining the differences, how women are, although the book said probably not up to 20 times better, like the internet indicates, women are better at nonverbal communication. We can read between the lines. We can pick out body language. We like to make eye contact. We like to be close. And I'm, of course, making generalizations again because I don't like to be close to many people. But we do engage in conversations on a deeper level because we can both transmit and receive these nonverbal cues. Men are more into having their own space, not getting a close connection, especially with same-sex partners in the communication. And they're just more direct, I guess, with their non-verbal communication. They don't like to have any ambiguity when they're talking. And I do have one anecdote. I limited myself to one. And I picked one about nonverbal communication because that's what we did last week in class. And I felt like something that's been happening in my home lately is a really good indicator of how powerful nonverbal communication can be, especially among two different genders. So I frequently come home in kind of a bad mood. I have to pick up the kids from daycare. If they have a bad day, then I get bombarded with that as soon as I get them from the teacher or from the kids themselves. I have 10 bags in my hands between their bags, my bags, if I have to stop at the grocery store. And I tend to walk in also and have the dog jumping up on me, so I'm not always walking in the house with a smile on my face. And I wondered why. The minute I walk in the door, my boyfriend runs to the garage to have a cigarette or goes down to the basement, or that's when he chooses to take a shower. We talked about it, and he says when you walk in the door and you are in a bad mood, I just don't want to be there. I don't want to be the one to have it taken out on me. I don't want to make it worse. So he takes my grouchy face and raising my voice and maybe stomping around a little bit because I'm frustrated with my work day, the kids, whatever it might be, has nothing to do with him, but it causes him to back away. So I made a conscious effort, and actually one of my girlfriends and I talked about this last week as well. We walk in the house and we smile. We say, "Hi, how was your day?" We pretend that we are fine, and that causes the men in our lives to respond positively, to pay attention to us, which also raises our mood to a better kind of level. So I know we haven't covered the relationship part of communication yet, but I'm really looking forward to seeing that and seeing how the genders react according to the book, because obviously I have a lot of my own opinions. But I think the real conclusion that I've come to is that it's still completely a mixed bag. There are some things that are same, some things that are different, and there's a lot that's left up to the individual and the specific circumstance with the people that you're dealing with. So I think it's really important not to place labels on people just because they're male or female, and to just expect that people will surprise you and treat them as an individual. Thanks for listening. Bye.